So hello everybody, this is Haris. So in our last video, we discussed some fundamentals and key concepts of accounting, and then we ended our video on accounting equation. So what is our main accounting equation? Our main accounting equation equals to assets equals to capital plus liability as written over here. I can highlight that to show you this is our accounting equation. Assets equals to capital plus liability. So I've already told you assets are the resources owned and controlled by the business, and capital is what resources are provided to the business by owner, and liabilities are the resources provided to the business by the third party, because the business wouldn't going to get resources from its own. Obviously it will get through somebody. So if it gets resources to owner, then that is referred to as capital, and if it gets resources to a third party, then that is referred to as liability. So what are certain examples of assets? So premises, machinery, computer, these are all your assets, because these are all the resources technically that you require in order to make your business operational. Premises, machinery, computer. And for time being, let's skip trade receivable that I have written. So bank and cash are also your asset, because you also need them in order to operate your business. So all of these are your assets. Now if I come on to trade receivable are also is also an asset for you. The trade receivable, if you see, comprises of two words, the word trade and the word receivable. The word trade implies it has something related to goods, and the word receivable implies like we have to receive. So if a customer has bought goods from us on credit, and then he promises us to pay later on, then he is referred to as my trade receivable. Let's say Mr. X bought goods from certain business, from business Y, right? So Mr. X would be a trade receivable for business Y if Mr. X buys goods on credit from Y's business, or Y business sells goods on credit to X. So if any business sells goods on credit to its customer, so the customer promises to pay the amount in future. So that is why this is referred to as trade receivable. Anybody from whom you receive money in future is referred to as receivable. And since it has to do with goods, like you sold him goods on credit, so that is why this is referred to as trade receivable. I hope I am clear on this. And why is trade receivable an asset? Because like this trade receivable amount would also sort of get converted into cash in future for us. That is why I'm referring it to as an asset, right? Because let's say, even if assumingly if the customer if X hasn't bought any goods on credit, then we would have more cash or more money in our bank, right? But now he owes us money, so we have less cash and less amount in our bank account. Now if I go on to example of liabilities, loan from Umer. If I have taken any loan from third person or anyone, that is referred to as liability, because that I'll have to pay off in future. Now there's also another liability called trade payables. Similar to trade receivables, trade payables are those, it is credit suppliers, right? Payables means like we have to pay back in future, and trade refers to goods. So if we as a business has bought any goods on credit from anybody, then that person is referred to as credit suppliers. So let's say if I operate my business and if I buy goods from Alex on credit, so I will promise Alex that I will pay you money in future, and that is why Alex is referred to as my trade payables, because I will pay him money in future. So in short, if you have to pay anything in future, if you have to pay the amount or cash in future, then that is referred to as liability. If we have to receive any amount in future, if the business has to receive any amount in future, that is referred to as a asset. Now we have covered our accounting equation, assets equals to capital plus liability. So like you can write in any way as well, like you can write assets if you take liabilities on the other side of the equation. So assets minus liabilities equals to capital. We can make capital the subject as well. Here assets is your subject, here capital is your subject now. And we can similarly make liabilities also a subject. So how would liability become our subject? Assets minus capital. Remember always the value of your assets. Remember always the value of your assets would be greater, right? Because you get the value of assets when you combine both capital and liabilities, when you add both capital and liabilities. So uh, so your assets would be greatest as compared to both capital and liabilities. So we'll move on to the next slide now. Acha, up we are given this question, assets equals to 85,000, liabilities equals to 35,000. So what is capital? So we can use the same equation that we have learned in the previous slide. Assets equals to capital plus liability. So we know assets equal 85,000. Capital ko we can assume X or we can keep a box, and our liabilities are 35,000. So if I take 35,000 on that side, 85,000 minus 35,000 equals to 50,000. So our capital equals $50,000. And I told you as well, the amount of assets would be greatest as compared to both liabilities and capital. So using that logic as well, you can just subtract the amount of liabilities in order to arrive at capital. So your capital is $50,000. Now let's move on to another slide, our next slide. So we are given this question. This is a bit difficult as compared to the previous question. So here we given machinery, motor vehicle, like we given the following assets and liabilities on 30th June. So we're given machinery, motor vehicle, furniture, loan from Albert, cash at bank, capital or owner's equity, and we have to figure out trade payables. So if you see machinery, machinery is your asset, motor vehicle is also your asset, furniture is also your asset, loan from Albert is your liability, cash at bank is your asset, capital or owner's equity is your capital amount, and we have to figure out trade payables, and trade payables is also our liability. So can I say if I add machinery, motor vehicle, whatever I'm highlighting with red, machinery, motor vehicle, furniture, cash at bank, then I will get the total amount of our assets. So we can add all of these amount in order to get total assets. Assets equals to 7,500 plus 5,000 plus 3,000 plus 4,500. So if I add all of these up, I'll get the amount of my total assets. So that equals $20,000. And you already know your owner's equity. Your owner's equity or capital is 14,000. So can I use both assets and capital in order to figure out liabilities? Because that equation you learned, accounting equation, that has 3 items. So if you know any 2 items, you can figure out the third item easily. So I can write the equation again. Assets equals to capital plus liabilities. So your total assets equals $20,000. Your capital equals $14,000. But we do not know our liabilities, so we can assume it to be a box or X. And if you subtract capital from assets, the amount of capital from assets, so you will get this box, which is equivalent to $6,000. So your total liabilities equal $6,000. Now you know one of your liabilities equal $4,000 and the other liabilities you have to figure out, that is trade payable. So can I say 6,000 equals to loan from Albert, that is 4,000, and amount of trade payables that you have to figure out, I can keep a box. So if I figure out this amount of box, that is equals to 2,000. So 2,000 is the amount of trade payables. If obviously if the total liabilities equals 6,000 and you know one liability that is 4,000, so obviously if the other liability is missing, that will be 2,000. So we are done with accounting equation as well in this video, in this short video. See you guys in the next video. Allah Hafiz.